This is the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, Nick Anderson.
What is up, Dynasty Degenerates? This is your host, Nick Anderson, with the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast, or as y'all know it, the Triple D FFP. And guys, we are getting closer and closer to closing out our rookie running back and wide receiver bracket challenge right before the draft. And it is my honor to have the Superflex guru in the house, Trey Tindell. I'm sorry, I got your last name wrong, man.
Hey,
What's up,
okay.
brother?
Hey, man, it's all good. A lot of people get my last name, Tindell, Twindwell. I'm like, there's not even letters that you're pronouncing in there. It's Tindell. But yeah, man, I love the podcast. I have caught up on all the episodes. This draft bracket is absolutely crazy to watch. Like Eton said last episode that you had him on, I mean, it's really great of what you're doing. You're kind of comparing this player to that player because a lot of people have a tough time of just figuring out where to rank these players. So if you can put them neck and neck to next to each other, it really helps us out. So I definitely appreciate you doing this for us.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I mean, we got to go over. So let's get started off by where can they find you at? Tell them what you guys do, okay?
Of course, yeah. As you know, I am the FF Superflex guru. You can also call me Trey. That's my legal name. That's also good. But I am a member of the Fantasy Football Forecast. It's a group of me and two of my friends, Tyler. You can find him on Twitter at TR Sports Chatter, and Jake. He's at FFootballJT. We're a great group of guys. We primarily go into Superflex, as you can tell by my name. We've been playing Superflex for a couple of years now. A lot of people didn't even know about Superflex until a couple of years ago, but it's really caught on. But yeah, like I said, it's my Twitter handle for the podcast is FF_forecast. As Nick said earlier, we have a website, ffbforecast.com, where we have player rankings, rookie mock drafts, weekly articles. We got a lot of things going on over there, so make sure to check us out. And I appreciate you giving us a little shout out, Nick.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. So we had some crazy bit of news come across the wire today. Rob Gronkowski is coming out of retirement. What the fuck? He's
I know,
going
right?
to the Bucs, man. He got traded. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we were talking about this pre-show. You know, we all of us fantasy football players were holding on to Rob Gronk. We're kind of hoping the same thing happens with Andrew Luck. We're kind of, you know, the Marshawn Lynch type thing. They retire and they have that itch to come back. You know, with Rob Gronkowski, he even said all last season that he has no intentions of coming back. And if you look at the way he looks now, I mean, have you seen the way he looks now? Obviously, probably.
Oh yeah, 60 pounds lighter.
Yeah, I mean, I am 6'3", 170 pounds wet, and he probably looks about like me. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to be interesting. I feel like he has to put on some weight. Who knows? He could play some wide receiver, but I mean, obviously he's going to go back. And what do you think about O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate now?
Man, I don't know. I'm a huge O.J. Howard fan. I traded for him 2 years ago. I was trying to get ahead of the curve, and it obviously kind of came back and bit me in the ass. But I'm thinking that this has got to be good signs. I mean, Cameron Brate's already got the contract, so it's got to be good signs for O.J. coming somewhere.
Yep.
But when you talk about Rob Gronkowski's size, dude, honestly, I think the size might play in his favor. Kind of like when you see with the J.J. Watts out there, Rob Gronkowski was such a physical fucking specimen that humans aren't supposed to be that large and move that aggressively with that much speed. And so I think that his back problems might end up dissipating because of the weight loss that he's seen, you know? So I'm actually hoping that it's going to be a benefit for him.
I would say you really don't think about the pros of losing weight, especially whenever you're a football player. But I mean, his back injuries he was very rarely playing, 12 games a season. And if you can get at least, 12 to 14 games a season out of Rob Gronkowski, I think those are easily tight end one numbers. But it's going to be interesting to see just what Rob Gronkowski we're getting back, whether or not it's, the one we had 4 years ago, or the one that when we had his last season of pre-retirement, or even the unknown of whatever he's going to bring in 2020.
Well, the one thing that I think about with him coming back is that, well, I mean, with all this COVID stuff going on, we've got shortened off seasons. We're anticipating shortened off seasons, and so Tom Brady hasn't had the ability to familiarize himself with the tendencies of a Chris Godwin, a Mike Evans, and OJ Howard, all of those guys. But he knows every single move that Gronk's going to make before he makes it,
Yep.
and so I think that like low key, even though Gronk's going to come in and have all these setbacks, with a year off, with losing weight, all of those things, I honestly think that chemistry is going to be huge because it's going to be bigger than anybody could have ever thought because Brady doesn't have the ability to be able to build that rapport with his other wideouts.
And yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think team chemistry is a little bit undervalued in today's NFL just because we saw Marshawn Lynch, like what I was saying earlier, he was out of the NFL full season, came back to play with the Raiders, and was out of the NFL for a little bit again. And then he came and signed on with the Seahawks, same offensive line, same system, same quarterback, and he was still chugging for almost 100 yards a game. So if you could just get to where you feel comfortable in a system that you feel comfortable with, like Rob Gronkowski is hopefully going to in the Bruce Arians offense, then I think that those are going to return some good dividends, especially if you're doing a startup this offseason because he's going undrafted. So I'm sure he's on the waiver wire out there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully Bruce Arians changes his ways and starts dishing it out to the tight end a little bit more. But let's just jump right in, man. We've got the last leg of our losers bracket here, seeing who's going to go up to the winners bracket for the championship, okay? So we've got Justin Jefferson versus Henry Ruggs and Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus Anthony McFarland. And we're just going to start right off with the wide receivers and jump in with Justin Jefferson. How's that sound to you?
Hey, man, I love me some LSU boys. They really showed out this in 2019, so I'm excited to get started with him.
Yeah, man. So we're just going to do a quick overview of what we know about Justin Jefferson. We've already went over a lot of the talking points, but we're going to dive right back into it. He's a long 6'1" wide receiver at 202 pounds with 33-inch arms, which is a really good wingspan for his height. He's really, really long, has a large catch radius. He's got 9 1/8 inch hands. We'll just jump right into his combine numbers. He ran an impressive 4.43 40, which I was not expecting from watching his tape. He had a 37.5-inch vertical with a 126-inch broad jump. I mean, those are really good numbers when you're looking at somebody where we kind of maybe thought that he was a product of the LSU offense coming into the combine. Getting to see him do that really impressed me.
Yeah, I was about to say, like what you just said, is he a product of the 2019 LSU Tigers? We have that question with everyone. I feel like even with Joe Burrow, was he a question? I mean, there was a lot of talent around him. And like you were just saying, it was kind of a good sigh of relief seeing him put up those combine numbers. We didn't quite know how fast he was going to run. We didn't quite know what, his other combine numbers were going to be, but he really showed out. Like you were saying, he really put himself in maybe the top 5 wide receiver rookie conversation. So it's going to be interesting to see just what his landing spot is because I'm a big landing spot guy. I'm a landing spot over talent person. So it's going to be interesting to see if he lands on a good situation versus one that he's going to be behind a bunch of wide receivers or with a mediocre quarterback.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure, man. And then looking at those numbers that we were just talking about, we'll break those down into the percentiles of his peers. So he had a 104.9 speed score, which is in the 83rd percentile, and he had a 126.8 burst score, which is in the 80th percentile. So he's up there with the other big dogs in this class. Now he's not in the 90s, he's not up there that high, but he's showing that he's got the athleticism to be able to perform. And then we talk about his career numbers when he's playing at LSU. We've already gone over the early years of him at LSU, so we're just going to dive right into his last season, his junior year there. He had 111 receptions with 1,540 receiving yards and 18 touchdowns. Those numbers are fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I mean, and compared to, I know you said let's gloss over, his previous season that he had before last season, but, he was very average that year. And then comparing him to what he did in 2019, it's kind of a head scratcher. Like, that's why I'm saying, is he a product of the system? But if you look at his tape, if you look at his combine numbers and you put it all together, and you'll see that he is a talented wide receiver. And even if he was playing, at another SEC school like Ole Miss or like Arkansas, that, he could probably put up some good numbers as well.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I mean, that the point that you were making about an average, I mean, it was technically his breakout season. So his sophomore year was his breakout season at 19.6 years old, which is something that we can never underestimate there. We'd like to see that early breakout age. We want to see it under 20 years old, right around that sophomore year. If it happens the freshman year, that's fucking awesome. But we want to see it in that sophomore year under that 20, and he hit it, especially with elite competition around him. But all of those numbers that he put up equated out to a 91% catch rate, man. And I mean, when you're talking about system products and all that stuff, you talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire having a mediocre season in 2018. You talk about Joe Burrow having a mediocre season in 2018. And you talk about Justin Jefferson doing that in 2018 as well. But you cannot undersell the fact that product of a system doesn't matter when you're catching 91% of the fucking passes coming your way.
Yeah, and that's what I like to say about Michael Thomas. I mean, it's kind of a good comparison. Michael Thomas has an insane catch rate. I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it was 96% or above. And it's just insane. If you throw it in his direction, it doesn't matter if he's playing with Drew Brees, or it doesn't matter if he's playing next towards Alvin Kamara, or playing with Sean Payton as his play caller. He's still catching the balls that you throw to him, and that's his whole job. If he's catching Justin Jefferson's catching 91% of the balls thrown to him, it doesn't really matter if he's getting tackled right after the fact at 0 yards per catch, or because he's still catching every single ball. Especially if you're in a full PPR league, you can't really ask for more than that.
Right, man. No, I completely agree. And so we'll look at his collegiate target share. He had a 21.5 share of the targets at LSU, which is something that we like to see because, he's got that elite competition out there, but he's showing that he demands those targets. He's taking control of that, unlike somebody that we're going to go talk about next time over. But he had a 30% dominator rating, which was 51st percentile. But like we said, he did have the elite competition around him. And then we'll just start getting into the things that jump off the page at you. We talked about his catch rate, so that's great. But accompanied with that catch rate is an absolute insane, attack at the ball, body control, and just the hands that come to match it.
Yeah, let's say, and you just said it all. He, previously you said he has an incredible catch radius. That's a fact. He has great body control. That's a fact. He can high point the balls, and he had 18 touchdowns. That he could be a great red zone threat. If he can land on the Eagles or land on the Green Bay Packers, where he is going to be a focal point in that offense, where he's going to have Devontae Adams on his other side. So he's going to eat in the red zone. He's going to eat in the slot. I think, Justin Jefferson is possibly the best slot wide receiver in this draft. I know there's a lot of good outside wide receivers, but I think if you throw him in the slot, it's tough to put anybody next to him.
Yeah, and that's why another landing spot that I think would be great for him is if you put him out there at Minnesota, the Vikings. If he takes that Stephon Diggs spot, I think that he could be Stephon Diggs. I mean, if not better. And I hate to do my boy Diggs like that because I love him. But I mean, the one thing that Diggs had that Justin Jefferson doesn't have is Diggs had really, really, really refined routes. And Jefferson just he's got all of the componentry there. He just hasn't put the pieces together yet. He doesn't have that aggression of movement. And now I've seen him run routes that are just fucking mind-boggling, okay? I shared a video the other day where he did a stutter step that sent the dude into the next dimension. But I mean, when he's out there on the field, I don't know if it's a timing issue or what, but he kind of lacks that aggression. He takes a couple extra steps to do something that it would take a more fluid route runner only one step to do. But I think that can be taught out of him at the next level.
Yeah, and I think the next person that we're going to be talking about here is very fluid, is kind of the complete opposite when the route running. He could burn right by you. He could shimmy shake you. And I think if Justin Jefferson can get taught that in the next level, then he's going to be really good. I think he could have an A.J. Brown-like season if, he gets put in the right situation, because he has the tools to have the yards after catch. He is, like you said earlier, his aggression is hit or miss. There's some routes that he'll put you right in the ground, and there's some routes that he's going to be pushed right off the line of scrimmage. If he could be consistent with that, I'd be buying Justin Jefferson everywhere.
Oh yeah, man. And I mean, he does when it comes to aggression and blocking, he's an absolute liability though. That's the one big knock on him that I'll say is that, and I talked about it in previous episodes, is that when you're watching Justin Jefferson, he is just a piss poor blocker. And like I said, with the route stuff, I've seen him lay some nasty blocks on people. But then the majority of the time, I'm watching him slip a block and it gets tackled at the 1 yard line and sacrifices a touchdown. I mean, it's just not what you want when you're looking at this guy. But all of that is also accompanied with the catch rate, with the fucking arm, with the body control. All of those things that he does well is accompanied in with this lackluster aggression, even though he does have the strength to get over press coverage and a little bit of unrefined routes. But then that's why we got to look at his competition over here in Henry Ruggs. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah, dude. I am a big Ruggs fan. See, I love Jerry Jeudy, but I think Ruggs really helped Jerry Jeudy do what he did last year, because it's kind of like the Travis. It's like, I would say Jerry Jeudy's kind of like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was eating because Tyreek Hill has 3 defenders 50 yards, 50 yards down the field with him. It's kind of hard to cover everybody whenever they have a speedster that burns 3 of their DBs. And, Henry Ruggs is a difference maker, no matter what. If you put him on the slot, put him on the outside, or if you're running a reverse to him in the backfield, he is going to make you be aware that he has the ball.
Yeah. I mean, those field stretchers are absolutely essential to be able to get people open in the under routes, But so we'll go into some of the Henry Ruggs metrics that we've got here. He's a smaller, more explosive wide receiver at 5'11", 188 pounds. But for his height, he has a good catch radius at 30.5-inch arms. He's got ungodly large hands that I can't talk about enough. He's got 10 1/8 inch hands at 5'11". It's absolutely bonkers. And then we'll look at his combine numbers, which is the thing that everybody knows about him, okay? He ran a 4.27 second 40, which is absolutely lightning fast. It's a top 840 that's ever been ran at the combine. He had a 42-inch vertical, which is just absolutely fucking bouncing. And he had a 131-inch broad jump, which is it's nuts. Like, I can't even talk about the metrics that this guy is putting up in the athleticism department. Have you seen him dunk? Have you seen the videos?
I have not seen him dunk, but I am not surprised. He is 5'11", but like you just broke down, he has the explosion to just. I would be more surprised if he didn't dunk it on somebody.
Oh no, he's windmilling. He's between the legs, Vince Carter, all that shit. And he's doing it in game too. The guy's an absolute freak athlete. But we'll go into, so he had 110 speed score, which is in the 90th percentile. He had 136.9 burst score, which is in the 98th percentile. We know the dude's a freak athlete. Like, we've established that. But let's talk about his career at Alabama. So, like I said, we're going to gloss over the start of it. It's a lot of same as the first stuff. His sophomore, freshman year looked a lot like his junior year, where he had 40 receptions for 746 yards and 7 touchdowns. And that equates out to no breakout age at Alabama.
And now I watched, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I watched the previous episodes, and that's something that I was very surprised to hear, that he didn't have a breakout age. His career at Alabama, it wasn't anything like off the charts. There wasn't anything that made you see like, okay, this guy's a first-round talent. But then once you look at his speed, you're like, all right, let's move him up. I think that's kind of like the Darius Hayward-Bay factor. As a Raiders fan.
Oh, come on, man, you kill me.
I know. I know you're a Chiefs fan. And talk about Henry Ruggs. I saw a report actually a couple of days ago that said the Chiefs are interested in trading up for Henry Ruggs. And now I'm assuredly knowing that you probably don't like that.
No, man, that's smoke screens. Yeah. That's that Belichick game. I saw something that came out that Tua, everybody's afraid of his durability. That was Belichick. No, ain't nobody worried about Tua's durability. Belichick's trying to sneak that in there. So he's like, oh, no, fall to me. Come on, come on.
Yep.
And no, ain't nobody want Henry Ruggs. They're trying to throw up some smoke screens so they can get their boy. We can't run 3 sub-6 foot wide receivers out there. It's not going to happen.
I was about to say, hey, but if anyone can find out how to do it, sub-6 foot wide receivers, but sub-4.3 wide receivers, I feel like Andy Reid could do it.
This is true. But so we'll talk about his target share and his college dominator rating. So the reason why he never had a breakout age, is because he had that nasty, set of freaking killers on his team. He had Jerry Jeudy, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, all of that stuff. And that equates out to him only having a 13.1% target share his junior year and only a 17.5% dominator rating, which is in the 17th percentile. But like you said, his real world value is so much more than his fantasy value. And now I'm not underselling his fantasy value here. He might end up being a fucking all-star if he falls in the right system. But the value that he brings to an NFL team in that field stretcher role is just, I mean, it's invaluable.
Exactly. And that's kind of how Tyreek Hill is. I mean, you're probably not going to like this, but Tyreek Hill, I feel like talent-wise, he's not as good as, Devontae Adams or as good as Michael Thomas or as good as the other top-end elite wide receivers. But his impact on the game is felt every single play, felt way more than them just because he's a field stretcher. You got to be aware of where he's at. He could be using, the reverses. He can be using the kick game and the punt game. You got a game plan for him in every sense of the word. I mean, then that's kind of how it is going to be with, with Ruggs. I feel like it's going to be difficult for NFL teams to, kind of scheme for him. But it's going to be interesting to see, is he going to be more like the Tyreek Hill or is he going to be more like the John Ross? Which one are you kind of feeling?
Man, the one thing that I can say, and I said it on a previous episode, is that I had this nightmare scenario because I drafted John Ross the year that he came out. I spent high on him.
Oof.
Sorry, I spent high on him. And so when I saw Henry Ruggs come up gimp on that 40, I had like a sneaking like memory of watching John Ross come up gimp on his 40 when he was at the combine. And that shit scares me. But when you're talking about the Tyreek Hill wasn't Tyreek Hill until after he came into the NFL. He had the speed, but it's all about that grit, the tenacity, and, the work ethic that got him where he's at because he wasn't the best route runner. But now if you go watch him, man, he's an elite route runner in the NFL. And that's what I'm hoping for John Ross. I just don't know if he's going to get there.
Exactly. And that's why I'm kind of excited for the Bengals to get Joe Burrow, is kind of to see if that's going to help John Ross out. For speedsters like those and like Deshaun Jackson, I feel like it's very scheme oriented. It's very quarterback. If you don't have a good quarterback to get you the ball down the field, then there's no point running 50 yards down the field for a ball that you're not going to get, thrown to you, or that's going to get like underthrown. That's kind of what I feel bad for, DJ Moore. He's getting Teddy Bridgewater. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects him, but let's just not go into that. But, with Henry Ruggs, I think I know Eton didn't like this. I want him to go to the Broncos. I think him with Drew Lock, with Cortland Sutton on the opposite side, with Noah Fant on the middle, I think everyone's saying this, but I think that's going to be Chiefs 2.0 a little bit. I mean, Andy Reid to, Vic Fangio is a mega downgrade, but if they could find some way to get a mega offensive-minded offensive coordinator in there, then I think that, they could do some damage for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock is also a massive downgrade from Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. But don't tell Eitan that I said that because he loves his Broncos. But so let's go into just kind of some of the breakdowns of the way that he plays the game. So he has the obvious speedster effect. He's the fucking Flash out there. I mean, the dude is lightning in a bottle, but he's also got a really good catch ability. I mean, accompanied with that speed is proficient routes, but an ability to catch the ball on the run and not lose speed, and the ability to be able to stop, start, and accelerate from that stop position that is just absolutely nuts. I mean, I've shown videos, and we're going to put up links with the videos on it so that you guys can see them later of his stop-start ability. But when you're moving that fast, a human shouldn't be able to stop on a dime like that.
And yeah, that's kind of what I love about Henry Ruggs, is whether or not you're sending him on a slant route or sending him on a crossing route, I mean, he's going to be able to beat whoever's behind him and then be able to catch that in stride and then continue to go the 100-mile-an-hour that he's going. And that's what I really like about him compared to Justin Jefferson, is that he does have that explosion. He does have the fact that he can stop and start. He can, shimmy shake you and then, give you that little spin move and just run right by you for a touchdown. Justin Jefferson he's a more of a big-bodied receiver compared to Henry Ruggs, so it's kind of like polar opposites right here. So it's kind of like pick your poison, which one do you like more? So it's going to be kind of interesting to see who we pick here at the end. But for Henry Ruggs, I mean, his crossing route and his slant route, he could take any of them to the house. It's just going to be interesting to see if he has a quarterback that can place it right there. That's what I'm saying. Drew Lock could put it right there and just see you later, sayonara.
Yeah, I mean, the one fault about Henry Ruggs, though, is that he can't handle press coverage, man. I mean, he does that. You talk about the shimmy and shake, But when he's coming off the line on his release, he does that dancing shit. And when they get up on top of him, he can't get over the top of that press coverage. And it's, I mean, at 5'11", 188, it's going to be something that he's going to have to not only work on, but he's going to have to devote himself to. It's going to have to be his sole purpose so that he can beat that, because these bigger body, because like we're talking about, when we're talking about the dominator ratings and the target shares and all that stuff, everybody that he's playing with is going to play in the fucking NFL. Like all those people. So all the cornerbacks that he was seeing with the elite coverage and the press coverage, he's going to be playing those guys on steroids in the NFL. And so, I mean, that's going to be something that I think he's really going to have to overcome, and it's a super big shortcoming of his.
Exactly. And that's why I love finding some SEC wide receivers, because, if they produced, it's more than likely going to continue on in the next level, because comparative to, CeeDee Lamb in the Big 12, he was going up against some absolute garbage cornerbacks. Then compare him to Henry Ruggs. Whenever the Henry Ruggs cornerbacks that were guarding him, who were usually cornerback twos, because, he had Jerry Jeudy opposite of him, the cornerback twos that were guarding him were probably more skilled than the cornerback ones that were guarding CeeDee Lamb. So that's why I love finding people that were in a hard competition like the SEC, because that they're proven. If they have proven stats, it's more than likely gonna go over to the NFL.
Right. No, I mean, that's a very good point, talking about how the number twos could be number ones in different divisions. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. But so we've talked about the positives. We talked about the negatives. The one thing that I want to get back to is that Henry Ruggs has elite speed. He has great stop-start ability. He lacks the aggression. He tries. Like, he's aggressive. He'll run in there and stick his nose in there. In terms of blocking, something we were talking about Justin Jefferson not having much of, Henry Ruggs does block, not well, but he's a much more aggressive blocker than Justin Jefferson has. But, I mean, he's got the hands. He's got the routes. He's got the separation. All of those things versus, the Justin Jefferson, big body, 91% catch rate, mass target share, and a high-end offense, So we got to vote. Let's hear what you got.
Man, this is tough. Like I said, I have a website, FFB Forecast. I have a rookie mock draft out. I have a 1.0, 2.0, 1.0. I had Henry Ruggs ahead of Justin Jefferson. But I released my 2.0 last week, and I had Henry Ruggs falling out of the first round, and I had Justin Jefferson at my 1.08. And that's just based on the fact that my 1.0 was before the combine, my 2.0 was after, and Justin Jefferson absolutely destroyed the combine. He really came out and showed exactly what I needed to see from him. So for me, it's going to be Justin Jefferson over Henry Ruggs, just based on the fact that Henry Ruggs is probably what the next level is looking for in the speedster wide receiver, but what you're going to get with Justin Jefferson. He showed it out every single game last year, 18 touchdowns. That's absolutely crazy. I mean, even if he has half that production in the NFL, I will be happy with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that was where my vote was going to be as well. It's kind of the floor ceiling debate, where, like, I think that the ceilings for Jefferson and Ruggs are right here. The floors are drastically different, because I think that Ruggs is a really, really volatile player in this draft, and he's going to be landing spot dependent, all of those things. And so there's a lot of ifs with Ruggs, but there's a lot of certainty with Jefferson. And when I'm taking my top picks, I want to go with certainty. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. So you picked Jefferson. Where is a place that you're wanting him to land for, like, good landing spots wise? Do you think that if he lands here, he's going to have a great rookie season?
I mean, like I said, I think that one that I really, really like, and I'm a Chiefs fan, but I'm also a Vikings fan. I think that Minnesota for Jefferson would be a really good landing spot for him. I think that the Broncos for Ruggs would be a really good landing spot. I mean, there are a bunch, though. There are a ton of wide receiver needy organizations in this draft, and it just so happens to coincide with one of the deeper, more diverse draft classes that we have. So that's what makes this one so exciting and so difficult to rank.
Exactly. And it's kind of like the complete opposite of where we're going to be going next with the running backs. There's 1 million wide receiver needy holes that they could fill, but very, very few running back needy teams at the time. So it's going to be interesting to see with the next two people that we're going to be talking about where they're going to be sliding in, because running back wise, landing spots are huge. It doesn't matter if Jonathan Taylor, gets drafted to, for instance, let's say the Seattle Seahawks, where he's going to have to with Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, and you're not going to know what his role is going to be, as opposed to him landing on the Miami Dolphins and him having an easy role with just having to beat out Jordan Howard. But that's nothing.
Yep. So let's get into those running backs, though. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus Anthony McFarland. And so the first one that we're going to dive into is you said you like LSU boys, so we're going to jump right in on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's a shifty running back at 5'7", 207 pounds. He's got 9 and I think it's 5/8 inch hands, but 0 fumble problems, so it's nothing that we're worried about with him. His combine numbers, he ran a 4.6 second unofficial 40, which is just crazy to me because you're watching him out there and he's so shifty, he's so elusive, and that tricks your brain into thinking that he's straight line fast. But a 4.6, man, that's not blowing you off the page. But he had a 39.5-inch vertical with a 123-inch broad jump. I mean, those are all good numbers, but the burst shows you what you saw on film. The 40 doesn't, right?
Exactly. And I'm going to take kind of a weird angle on this. I was extremely happy with his 40 just based on the fact that I know he's going to be falling to me in every single rookie draft now. I mean, because like you said, we saw him on the tape. We saw him every single game. He was quick. He was fast. There was no one that could really catch him whenever he got those couple steps on him. So whenever he came up with that 4.6, I was like, interesting. I mean, a lot of people are going to be overreacting on this, so I'm going to be receiving all the dividends. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. He is extremely bursty. There was times that there was 3 defenders around him in the backfield. He would give a little juke spin move, and no one in front of him, 15-yard gain. And I just absolutely love that about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I think he is possibly the biggest steal in any of the rookie drafts, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
But yeah, so he had a 92.5% speed score, which is in the 36th percentile. Like we were talking, straight line fast ain't his game. But he had 128.7 burst score, which is in the 89th percentile. We'll go over his career at LSU a little bit. Like I said, we've talked about their previous seasons, but the sophomore outing, the 2018 year for all of these LSU products was lackluster, But then we look to his junior year, which he just and so we're clear. His sophomore year was his breakout year. That's great. That's what we want to see. But then we look at his junior year. He had 215 carries on 1,414 yards, 16 touchdowns, all accompanied by what makes him great, which is that 55 receptions for 453 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. That is an absolutely insane number.
I love CEH just based on the fact of his pass catching game. With today's NFL of how it's going, you need to be able to catch the ball. Like I just said, Jordan Howard, great running back, can't catch the ball, doesn't have a rule. Adrian Peterson, great running back, can't catch the ball, doesn't have a rule. You need to be able to catch the football. You need to be able to, be able to be used in every single sense of the game, whether or not that's thrusting the ball or passing the ball, and also even pass blocking. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that he is going to be great at the next level just based on the fact of his pass catching. What he's going to be able to bring to the table every single game.
Right. No, I mean, that is absolutely where the NFL is going. We just saw who got the biggest fucking contract that the running backs have ever seen, and it's Christian McCaffrey, and he's a pass-catching running back. But let's go into Clyde Edwards-Helaire's collegiate production. So he had a 10.2% collegiate target share, which is in the 76th percentile. So, I mean, like we said, he's got those receiving chops. And then he had an 18.3% college dominator rating, which is in the 27th percentile. It's not great. It's not what you want to see, but that's fine. So the not so obvious, though, when we're looking at his game, is that he plays aggressive for his size, man. I'm not saying that he's out there and he's got power, but that dude plays with a chip on his shoulder. He does, like I said, he doesn't have the best power, but his pad height and his aggression makes him a liability in between the tackles.
Yeah, and like you were just saying, his pad level is absolutely insane. He will make sure that you feel him, whether or not if it's a 1-yard run or the end of a 35-yard run. He will make sure that he will put his pads into your chest and make sure that, hey, I'm here. It's the fourth quarter. I'm still here, and you better be ready for it. And something that his size is very, left to be seen. I'd prefer him to be bigger. He's, like you said, 5'7", 5'8", a little bit above 200 pounds. I would prefer him if he was Cam Akers size, 5'11", but you got to take you got to take what you can get. His pass catching is easily the best in this whole draft class. His pad level, he loves to finish, so I completely agree with that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an absolutely insane running back to own in this draft.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing that I have said about him is that, when we're looking at size comparisons on people, I mean, he is 5'7", so he looks smaller than other people out there, but he is compact, and I've compared him to a Ray Rice. I've compared him to Devonta Freeman, and if there was one of these, I mean, you could call him a quote-unquote scat back, but I don't necessarily consider him that. But if there was one of these guys that was going to break out and have an absolutely bell cow share of things from that smaller stature comparison, it would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because he does have the vision. He's got the mobility. He's got the jukes. And not only the jukes, he has the spin move, jump cut, spin move, all of that stuff tied in together. That vision is just crazy, and he has the ability to have a bell cow share. It's just if he lands in the right spot.
And it's like I was doing some research, and one of the craziest stats that I saw on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his last season, 2019, 36% of his runs ended in a first down or a touchdown. That's absolutely crazy. Over 1/3 of his runs ends up with a mega gain, whether that's first down or touchdown. And we'll bring that back to product of the system. We don't know his 80% of that offense is going to be gone next year. It's going to be interesting to see, if LSU is going to be able to repeat what they did last year. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he is an absolutely insane running back. 36% of his carries, first downs or touchdowns.
Well, I mean, with somebody like that, there are these niche leagues, I just adopted an orphan dynasty league about a month ago that they do points per first down. And so when you start to think about these more like, unique leagues, maybe that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. But we talked about his pass catching. We said that the one thing about his pass catching that I feel like needs to be accentuated here is that there's a lot of good pass catchers in this draft. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is an underrated pass catcher. But we've got, J.K. Dobbins, we've got DeAndre Swift, we've got the Eno Benjamins. But I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has the most diverse route tree of all of them. Where they were talking about when Duke Johnson was playing for the Browns, that's the type of shit that Clyde Edwards-Helaire brings to the table, with that he can go out and play in the slot and shit like that, but he can also come in and do it from the backfield, and they can also bang in between the tackles.
See, and I listened to a previous podcast episode of yours, and I heard that you were kind of sort of comparing him to Duke Johnson, and I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. I mean, the size-wise, skill set-wise, that's pretty close. I do also like the Ray Rice comparison. They are extremely similar, whether or not that's their size or whether or not that's their skill set. I think that Ray Rice and him are extremely similar, so I love that comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, I do compare him to Duke Johnson. I do compare him to that, but Duke was just he still is and was, especially coming out of college, way softer than CEH is. Oh, yeah. CEH is just gritty. He's just nasty. Like, he just wants to get it. And I think that kind of attitude, that chip on your shoulder, is another product of why you're talking about 1/3 of his fucking carries go for first downs, is because he's got that chip on his shoulder and he ain't going down on first contact,
Yeah, and I 100% agree on that. And that's what I like about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is because he gets you those extra yards. I listened to a previous episode, and you said that you hate when people get hit and they go down immediately. You got to be able to fight for those extra yards. I mean, and that's what Clyde Edwards-Helaire does. Anytime that he gets hit at the line of scrimmage, he'll at least throw his body at the line, and that's kind of what Zeke Elliott does. And there's a lot of times that Zeke Elliott gets hit at the line of scrimmage, but he falls forward for those 2 yards, 3 yards, and that adds up over the season. So I really like that Clyde Edwards-Helaire makes sure that he makes the opponent know that, hey, I'm here, and you better be ready for it.
Right. No, I mean, that's what you got to love about him. But I mean, so the negatives is that, he's a smaller back, and some of these guys just have it and some of them don't. I don't necessarily think that CEH has the ability to be a 20-25 carry back, even though I do think that he is a little bit grittier than most. But And then he's also just an adequate pass blocker. Because of his size, because of his height, he has a tendency to jump for cut blocks more than you would like to see him do. And he's successful. He's aggressive on it, but it's not always what you want. And then they'll run around him, and it's just not ideal, but he's there. He's working. And so but those are the negatives. But the positives are he's got crazy elusive nature. He's got the spin move. He's got the jump cut. He's got the dead leg. He's got the ability to be able to string all that together, accompanied by a chip on his shoulder where he's falling forward, getting those 3 yards every time you want him to, getting the first downs, and then all of that added on to a crazy passing ability makes him an elite candidate.
Exactly. And I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that if he can land on the Miami Dolphins, where it's Jordan Howard pounding the rock and CEH coming in on the passing downs or even sprinkling in here and there, I think that would be a great role for him.
Yeah, see, I actually had a place that I understand that it's not going to be a popular opinion, but I think that a great landing spot for him is going to be the Ravens. Because in 2021, they can cut Mark Ingram and save $5 million on the cap hit. And then accompanied with that, you look at Jim Harbaugh's history with running backs. He had Ray Rice. He has Mark Ingram. He had Alex Collins. And then Terrence West isn't the one that I'm looking for. But there was another one. There was another one mixed in there that was that kind of – he has the vision, the grit to be able to bounce around in between the tackles, but he's also a receiving back. That's what Jim Harbaugh – or is it John Harbaugh? John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I would say Jim is the crazy one losing at Michigan. So
yeah, but that's what John Harbaugh likes. And so, I mean, looking at his career history, looking at the future of their team, and also looking at the fact that he has a history of wanting to correct what they did wrong in the playoffs. And what they did wrong in the playoffs last year was that they couldn't run the ball. Mark Ingram did not get shit for rushing yards last year, and I think they might try and address that in the draft.
Yeah, Mark Ingram, I remember he was really hurt like towards the fantasy playoffs. I think that was around that time. I know there's a lot of big Justice Hill people out there. I'm not a big Justice Hill person. I mean, Mark Ingram, he has his role, but he's getting up there. I mean, I think he's 31 or something like that. He's
going to be 31 in December this year.
Yeah, but say I knew he was plus 30. I mean, at some point in time, we all love Mark Ingram. We all know what he can bring to the table, but they do have to supplant him with young talent. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I would love that fit, to be honest with you. Put him next to Lamar Jackson, and if they could add Clyde Edwards-Helaire and another elite wide receiver, that offense is going to be pretty nice next season.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. But so we got to take all the pros and all the cons that we've got of CEH, and we got to take him up against his competition, which is Anthony McFarland. He's an elusive running back at 5'8", 208 pounds with 8 7/8 inch hands, and he's got 4 fumbles in between 2018 and 2019, which is a little problematic, but I mean, it's not the worst thing that I've ever seen. We look at his combine numbers, and he ran an absolutely blazing 4.44 second unofficial 40 with a 29.5 inch vertical and 116 inch broad jump. But the 40 impresses me, and the burst score, I'm telling you, he runs burstier than that on film.
I say his burst score is in the 8th percentile. It's kind of interesting to see like where his combine numbers are at compared to everyone else, because like you said, he is quick. His 40-yard dash was 4.44. That was, I think, like the 3rd or 4th fastest out of all running backs. Anthony, I mean, he is a speedster. I would absolutely love to be able to get him if he lands on the right team, because like I said earlier, landing spots are crazy valuable for running backs.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I mean, I do think that he is going to be landing spot dependent, but I mean, that straight line speed, and I'm telling you, that burst is not indicative of what he's actually putting out there on the field. But let's look at what he did in Maryland. So he, his sophomore year, we need to preface this by the fact that he was hampered by a high ankle sprain, because his freshman season, he put up, it was 1,034 yards on 4 touchdowns and a good number of receptions as well. And he was supposed to be the bell cow his sophomore year, but he got hampered by that high ankle sprain. And his coaches even said that plagued him his entire season. And so he had 114 carries for 614 yards and 8 touchdowns, accompanied by 17 receptions for 126 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. So those are a little bit depleted numbers, but I'm telling you, I don't think we've seen the best Anthony McFarland that there is out there yet.
See, now you were talking about his high ankle sprain. Would you consider him injury prone? I know it was just his injury in college, but I was looking back throughout high school even. He broke his leg his senior year of high school, and even before that, he had a multitude of injuries. So would you kind of consider him injury prone? I know that injury prone is a bad label to put on somebody, especially going into the NFL, but I mean, it's kind of something to at least take into consideration.
I would say he went through his entire freshman season without a problem. And then he comes in with the high ankle sprain, and that can happen to anybody. I mean, Julio Jones has the injury prone tag attached to him, but you see him play damn near every game, every single year. A leg break is something that you can't foresee. Drink more fucking milk. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know what to say about that. But, I mean, I wouldn't say that we are at the point. If you want to talk about somebody who's injury prone, go look at Zach Moss. Zach Moss is injury prone to shit. Don't look at Anthony McFarland. But,
Okay,
dogs
good.
are going.
Good. I
My
just
dogs
wanted
are
to
going
bring
crazy.
that up.
I apologize.
Hey, man, I wish I had a dog. My landlord's no pet policy. I've lived in the same house for 3.5 years and still no pet. That's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I completely agree about Zach Moss. He is definitely injury prone. I just wanted to kind of pose that question because a lot of people don't know about his past injuries, even in high school or even his high ankle sprain. A lot of people just say, "Oh, look at that 40 time. He must be quick." But and with those injuries have to like kind of catch up to him at some point. But I agree, there are kind of not ones that you can kind of foresee.
Right, exactly. But so we'll look at what he does well out there on the field. He's an explosive runner with elite speed. We talked about that 4.4440. That's a lot of fours. He has great lateral quickness and explosion after the cut. I mean, when we're talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire and we're talking about him being a very elusive back, the same things that I'm seeing in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a little bit lessened, because CEH is the slipperiest back that I've seen in a while. But, I mean, Anthony McFarland has that ability. He's got the spin move. He's got the jump cut. All of those things that you want to see. He has the ability to be able to put it out there on the field. But the one thing that he has that I think is a little bit better than CEH is he's got that fucking power behind him. He reminds me of a later round Keyshawn Vaughn, who is a low-key guy that I'm just crazy about because he's got that power mixed with that elusiveness.
It's kind of crazy because Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Anthony McFarland are pretty much the same size. Anthony McFarland's 5'8", 208-ish pounds, and CEH is 5'7", 208-ish pounds. But if you were to look at them neck and neck, I would say that Anthony McFarland is quite a bit bigger. I mean, at least looking at him than CEH. And and we were kind of saying that CEH kind of makes you feel that he's there, and I would say Anthony McFarland kind of even takes that to the next level. I mean, if you were to kind of look at his past tape, he makes sure that he's there, and he could even run by you. He like against Ohio State last year, everyone knows that was his breakout game. He came onto the scene. He had 3+ touchdown runs of over 50 yards. That's absolutely crazy, and that's against an elite defense. I mean, I know, like we were saying earlier, he was hampered by injuries. It's kind of hard to be ultra productive whenever you have a high ankle sprain or dealing with a nagging injury. But if you were to go back and look at his freshman season, he was absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that. And that's why, especially when we're talking about, those breakout games and all that stuff that he's done, that's why I think that he's going to be such a huge steal in this draft, is because I think that, we saw a freshman year where he blew up. And then we saw a depleted sophomore year where he was injured. And I just think that we have not seen the best out of this guy yet. But the cons on him are that he's a lackluster pass blocker. We've talked about it in episodes past. He also just doesn't quite have a nose for the end zone. He's great in between the 20s. He's absolutely fantastic and electric. But when he gets into the red zone, he doesn't have that ability to be able to punch it in, which is crazy because I've seen the power in between the 20s. But then he gets to the end zone, and like Aton said, maybe it's just the defense saying, fuck you, I'm done with this shit, Like they'll allow you to get yards on him, but they ain't allow you getting them touchdowns. And so, but something about him just doesn't have that punching ability.
Yeah, and I loved that Ethan said that last episode because you never think about that. Whenever you're playing football, you're always like bend but don't break, and that's kind of what they were doing. They're not going to allow you to get in the end zone, and that might be what it is. And but kind of like what you were saying, and I didn't even look at your past episodes. I was just looking at the tape, and that's something that I noticed, that he kept getting stopped in the 5-yard line quite a bit whenever he could have even made the extra burst or the extra spin move or extra anything to kind of launch his body into the end zone. And whenever you're playing with Maryland, you kind of need all the points you can get. So that's kind of concerning that he wasn't overly aggressive in finding the end zone, but at the same time, he was also playing on Maryland. So maybe that might be the team he was playing on.
Right. Yeah, but with him, I mean, in conclusion, like he has that vibe about me that he's going to be a post-draft riser. I think that he's going to go to a position that he's going to have the ability to shine in. That's just my wishful thinking or whatever. But, if he follows the right system, I could see him being an immediate producer because I don't think that we've seen the best of him yet. He's explosive, elusive, combined with great power, which fits into today's NFL. And he's one of my favorite lower tier prospects.
I would say, and I'm trying to think of a landing spot that I would feel for him. And like I said earlier, prefacing this before he got into the running backs, there's not very many good landing spots, but there's a damn lot of good running backs that you could put there. And it's gonna be really hard for the second tier, like the Anthony McFarlands, to kind of find a spot because that the teams are gonna rather prefer Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire before they get to Anthony McFarland. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lands, but an interesting landing spot for me, I would love to see him land on like the Detroit Lions. I think if he could find a spot behind Kerryon Johnson, I think that would be a good two-back tandem for them.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I have Zach Moss going to the Lions, and my prediction for Anthony McFarland is I think that Andy Reid has learned his lesson. We don't need the high-end running backs. We've won with Damian Williams, who we saw was dog shit in Miami. So we've seen that all we need is a good running back, not a great running back. And Anthony McFarland at the 138th pick in the NFL draft will be a Kansas City Chief because I am believing it so. That's where we're at on that one.
You got to speak it into existence, the LeVar Ball style.
That's right. I won't do anything like him, but that maybe. So we got to vote though. So who you got on this? I'm gonna give the nod to you.
For me personally, I think I'm not going to say it's an easy choice, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be my choice. I love Anthony McFarland. I love what he brings to the table. But if we're talking fantasy football, if we're talking about who you can get and bring you great value, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be that. He's going to land, even if he lands on a terrible spot, he is going to be still a great PPR pass catching back, whether or not that, even if he lands on a team that already has a pass catching role, I think that he's going to be able to carve out a role, whether or not that's even, on special teams, because like I said, he did play special teams for 3 years. I mean, I think that he could find a role regardless, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is kind of the easy choice for me.
Yeah, I have to agree on this one. I mean, I love Anthony McFarland, so don't get me wrong. But when you're comparing what they bring to the table, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire by pretty much a mile. So he's going up to the winner's bracket. We're seeing him in the next episode. Anthony McFarland's falling off. We're going to see where he fits in with the rankings after this. But let's ask you, now that we're done with that, let's get into one more final question with you. So what's one player in this draft that you are higher on than everybody else?
See, now, I was going to pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we're talking about him. Eton picked him. There's just nothing I can do. And as you can see, I'm a big Superflex guy. I have great value when it comes to quarterbacks. I always play in Superflex leagues. I very rarely play in one quarterback league. So anytime I tell you rankings or anything, it's always going to be coming from Superflex leagues. And for me, I think it's kind of like what happened with happened last season with Daniel Jones. You could get Daniel Jones in Superflex leagues in the middle of the second round. But for me personally, I love Jordan Love. I know that's going to be a hot take, but it's all, for me, it's landing spot dependent. If he can land, I know it's not going to happen. If he can land on the Chargers, if they could trade back somehow and get him, or even trade up in the second or trade up in the middle to late first round to get him, because Joe Burrow is obviously going to go first. Then there's going to be Tua, then Justin Herbert, and then from there on, it's kind of like a free for all, whether or not it's Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason or Jordan Love. But we saw what Jordan Love could do in 2018. And then he showed out so much. His head coach literally said, "See you later. I'm going to a better school. Good luck." And we saw what happened. 2019, he was a shell of himself. And I am attributing that to the system. It's hard for an NFL quarterback to get used to his system, whether or not that's a college quarterback, bringing in a whole new system to him for his last season before he goes pro. That's a lot of pressure on somebody. But a lot of people are saying Patrick Mahomes light. I think that's absolutely crazy. I'm not even going in that comparison. I'm not even considering that. I think that if he could be even what Drew Lock was at the end of the season last year, where he could, you draft him, sit him for half the season. I mean, I would love for him to go to a situation where he could sit half the season, then maybe even sit the whole season, then come on and then just show out, kind of like what your boy Patrick Mahomes did. But I know that's best case scenario. But for me personally, I would love to get Jordan Love in the first round of Superflex rookie drafts, or even early second round, because I know that I could have because I know that he's going to be there. So
right. No, yeah, hell yeah, man. I love that take. Getting the value quarterbacks in those super flex rookie drafts is really where it's at, because if you don't have those top, 5 picks, then you're not going to be able to snag yourself one of those top end quarterbacks. And if you can find the value later on in the draft, then that's what it's all about. That's what wins you championships right there.
Exactly, and that's kind of what you could find last year with the Terry McLaurins or the Daniel Jones or the Deebo Samuels. You gotta be able to find those diamonds in the rough, and that's why I love rookie draft so much. That's why I love what you're doing right now. You're putting people neck and neck and kind of comparing them, because, I mean, we've all seen what they can do on the tape. We've all seen what they can do on the 40 time. It's going to be interesting to see where they land. That's why I'm so excited for 2 more days. Thursday night needs to show up. Hurry, please, so I could just know what I'm doing with all my rookie draft picks, because I'm in a lot of leagues. I have a lot of teams. I have a lot of rookies. So I'm just praying that there's a lot of good rookie drafts landing spots so that I could draft them and just not have to cry myself to sleep Thursday night.
Hell yeah, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. I love what you guys do over there. You've even created a little collective of like all of us podcast hosts together. It's awesome what you guys are doing. So tell them where they can find you one more time and what you guys have got coming up.
Yeah, of course. And like you just said, I did create that group, and I love promoting, whether or not it's a smaller podcast or smaller fantasy accounts, because I know that we need to be here for each other, because a lot of times there's a lot of animosity in the fantasy Twitter world. There's a lot of people that say, I hate your rankings, you're dumb, you don't know anything. We all have different values. That's why I love bringing us together. That's why I loved the idea of me coming on here and sharing my insight with you guys, just because, like Etan said last time that he guested, everybody has a different viewpoint on everything. Everybody can give you a different nugget of information that you did not know before, talking to them. And that's why I created that group, to kind of self-promote all of us podcasts, all of us Twitter accounts. And I was really happy that you joined that.
Oh, yeah, man.
But like you said, you can find me at FF Superflex Guru. You can find my podmates at TR Sports Chatter and F Football JT. And our podcast is called the Fantasy Football Forecast. And you can find us at FF_forecast. We have weekly episodes that we go live every Saturday night, and we release the podcast every Monday night. So make sure you guys look out for that. And like I said earlier, we have a website, ffbforecast.com, where we have weekly articles, player rankings, rookie mock drafts. So we're going to be releasing our way, way, way too early 2021 mock draft following the draft. So be on the lookout for that. And like I said, we got weekly articles that we'd love for you to read. My most recent one was I showed you guys how to rebuild a team. I put out all the trades I've did, all the moves I've made. So if you have a rebuild team out there, make sure to check that out as well. But thank you, Nick. I appreciate you letting me go on that spiel.
Oh yeah, man. Well, hey, it was a pleasure to have you. We appreciate your insight, and just thank you for coming on. Have a good day, y'all.
Hey, yeah, see you guys.